the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled is author Amy Ephron and designer Timmy Woods. You see all of Timmy's bags on the set. Author Amy Ephron has written One Sunday Morning, which, like her White Rose and A Cup of Tea, is a precise historical novel. She was born and raised in Beverly Hills, surrounded by a family talented in the arts. Did you go to Beverly Hills schools?
For a second, I went to grammar school, and then I went to school in Vermont.
Oh, is that what happened? Then did you go on to college?
No.
Nope.
Skip that part.
How could you skip that part?
It was a time when you could skip that part. And I got a job at a magazine, and I'd taken 6 months off, and by the time it came time to go to college, I thought, you know, I'll go through 4 years and try. I don't know if I was right. I wish now that I'd taken a little bit more time to study things. But it was kind of all right to do that in 1974, whatever it was.
Were you writing?
I was writing a little bit, yeah.
At that time?
Yeah.
And when you went to the magazine, were you writing?
I was the receptionist, and then I went, yes, I was the receptionist. That was my first job. But I was writing for the National Lampoon, the early National Lampoon.
And you, your house had all these talented people in it. Who was there? Because that was like a salon in Beverly Hills,
Well, my
wasn't
parents
it?
were screenwriters, and all of my sisters are also writers. But I mean, they worked at Fox for years, and they had a lot of good friends, and they did a movie with Fred Astaire, and they did, you know, there were people going in and out of the house who did things, and it was sort of great. But they were from New York, and so they had a kind of different attitude towards things. We used to, you know, they used to make us read.
Which is great, which is what we teach in the Beverly Hills schools. Read, read, read,
Right.
because you can't ever get enough. But all the girls turned out to be writers.
I don't think we had a choice.
That's interesting.
I don't think we had a choice, but in my case, I started writing when I was 4. I think my first poem was published in the LA Times when I was 5. I won some little contest.
But was there a competition?
No, well, they're much older than I am, so I wasn't really in a competition when I was little. But really, from the time I was 4, I wrote. I don't think it ever occurred to me that I was anything other than a writer.
Well, did your parent, did you?
They taught us how to tell stories. When we
Oh,
were at
see,
the dinner
that's-
party, that you would tell them what happened that day, and they would make you tell it like a story. And I think there was competition in that way, in terms of who had the better day, who had the funnier story, who had,
I see.
but I never felt that other thing that,
So there was no way to break out. Did you ever think of collaborating with either your parents or your sisters?
no, I think about collaborating with my middle daughter, actually.
Is that
2 of my
right?
sisters write together, and Anna and I are playing with something, but she's the only person who I feel I have a connection with.
Your
that
daughter.
My daughter, that I could really do that, yeah.
Does she write too?
Yes.
And is she's not in?
She's at NYU.
Oh, she is. So would you write, what would you write together? Film?
No, we're playing around with a little movie script, yes.
So she's not too young. Were you looked upon as too young in your family?
I think my older sisters, Nora and Delia, are very close in age. There's 14 years between me and my oldest sisters. It's a big gap. So I don't know, you grow up with whoever. I don't know, how many brothers and sisters do you have?
Yeah, right, a lot. So when you're raising your family, did you continue to write?
Yes.
You have 3 kids.
I have 3 kids, and I've actually published 6 novels.
So
So
you've been writing
I've been
the whole
writing the
time.
whole time. And I also had a film called A Little Princess, which Warner Brothers did, which I was one of the writers and one of the producers on.
So you talked about being a studio exec?
I was a
Mogul.
studio
What
exec
were you?
when I was in my 20s. I was a little baby studio executive. I couldn't settle down to write. And I was sort of good at
What were you
stuff.
doing? Baby exec.
I was a production vice president, and I supervised a lot of movies. I mean, the thing
you
I'm
choose
the
things?
thing I'm proudest of is Tess, because I talked them into distributing it and made the deal to distribute that. And I oversaw a lot of production on a lot of films in the 3 or 4 years that I did. I didn't do it that long.
And then what'd you do?
I started a novel.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Which one?
A novel called Cool Shades.
Oh, Cool Shades. But White Rose is one of your novels that we talked about as being historically correct or historically
It's actually jump-started by a real event. It's the story of a 19-year-old Cuban revolutionary who was imprisoned by the Spanish, and her sent a reporter to ostensibly interview her, but in fact he sent her to rescue her. And he brought her back to New York, and she was a cause célèbre, and she was actually the linchpin that started the Spanish-American War. And I wrote it as a love story. I do an enormous amount of research. A Cup of Tea is 1917. It's set against the beginning of the U.S.'s entrance into World War I.
But do you just read? Do you interview people? What do you do to get this
I read
research?
the fiction of the times.
Oh, you do?
I do, absolutely.
So that gives you a feeling?
I read the history of the times. I reach the food and what restaurants, in the case of like One Sunday Morning, which is 1926.
This is what we were going to talk about, right.
1926. It's a little bit easier. A lot of the restaurants that are in this book in Paris and New York still exist.
But you lived in Beverly Hills. How did you research this? How did you travel?
Well, I've been to Paris. I mean, I've lived in New York, I've lived in Paris, so it wasn't that hard. I think that one of the things that I try to do is be politically accurate. And 1926 was a period of time that was very much like now. This is about 4 20-year-olds and an older woman who see another woman they all know come out of the Gramercy Park Hotel with a man who isn't her husband.
Right.
And it's all jump-started by seeing something out a window. And the man is actually engaged to another friend of theirs, and they all promise that they're not going to tell. And one by one they, of course, tell. But it's a moment in time that affects everybody's life. And I'm sort of fascinated by moments that you aren't expecting to have.
But could you think this is like Desperate Housewives in a way?
Well, because it's all jump-started by looking out a window, absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean...
And it's very contemporary in that in 1926 there was Prohibition. There was a huge conservative backlash. We had a president who'd isolated us from the rest of the world. And there are similarities between 1926 and our political climate.
The interesting thing is, when I was reading the reviews, is you're compared to Edith Wharton, who, when you think of that, you think of like precise work and a little mystery and but more verbiage. You're pared down.
I know, I'm the contemporary version of that. It's like...
Isn't that right?
Yeah, no, it's very pared down. There's no question about that. But it's a novel of manners in a way. It all turns on morality and misperception, and things aren't exactly what they seem. Everybody thinks something that may or may not be true, but the actual act of it affects everybody's life. And it's also all about parties. I mean, the truth of the matter is it's all 20-year-olds going to parties. It's really a little frivolous on some level.
But how'd you know that?
Don't we all know that?
I don't know.
Don't we all know that about 1926 and about the music? And I also try to be...
And the clothes? You even described the clothes and the fabrics.
And I got permission from the Gershwin estate to use the lyrics to Someone to Watch Over Me.
Oh, that's how you did.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you talk about a dropped waist and a long string of pearls, and it just draws a picture like that.
And the food.
And the food, right.
The fact that everyone ate hearts of palm in the 20s.
Right.
It was very hard to discover that they ate hearts of palm, but menus exist. And then when I got to the point where they were traveling to Paris, I figured out that I could figure out which ship they actually took. And that was a big diversion, because then I realized I could find pictures of the ship. And I spent a long time researching this little French line ship that I'll never be able to see, but that I wish you and I could go on next week, called the Paris.
Well, how long did it take you to write a book
3
like
years.
this? Oh, so it's intense.
I do ridiculous amounts of research. Then it's just under the surface.
What I wanted to ask was, do you write, and then say this paragraph and then make only 3 or 4 words out of it to pare it down?
No, I do 100 drafts of every page and then move on to the next page.
100 drafts?
I rewrite every sentence.
So that each thing gets, you edit yourself.
So when I'm done, I'm done. I don't have a draft and then I go back and rewrite it
I
5
see.
times. When I'm done, but it's a terrible process.
But so, I mean, you've really pared it down to just 10 words where it probably was, what, 6 sentences before? And you pick the
I know,
right
do you think
words.
I should quit this?
No, you pick the right words. How do you do that? Because you draw a picture, and I think this is so charming, the size of this book.
Thank you.
Is it, and I just, and it's just, I don't know, it's so easy to read. Look at all the white space on it.
Right.
And yet these 2 pages probably tell so much.
It's a form of minimalism.
It is,
It's
really.
a form of minimalism, and I think if it's done properly, it compels you to read the next sentence, because there's nothing extra and you don't necessarily, I mean, I tend to skip through books that have a lot of verbiage these days. I have a
see.
feeling that this is the way of the future, is minimalism, that that emails and things have made us all much more precise than we used to be, but I don't know.
Well, do you see this being a movie?
I see it being something. I'm not certain that I see it being a movie. I could actually see it being a series.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah,
Do
but
you
there's
see
so
it like
many
that?
characters in it, and you go from one woman's life to another woman's life to another woman's life, that it has that sort of flip thing.
It's all like
of a soap.
flashbacks. You could
Yeah.
do all flashbacks on
Yeah,
that.
it's kind of more like, and there really are a lot of characters. There are 6 principal women. They all have significant others. They all have parents. There are a lot of people in this.
But you know, and they say in Hollywood that nobody writes great things for women. So, I mean, here's your cast.
Thank you.
Is
Thank
filled
you.
with
Although
women
I
that are
think in
strong.
some way-
Each one's strong.
But it's more of a serial. Yeah, they are each strong, and they're all each in competition.
Right.
What I really wanted to write about is that kind of complicated friendship that women have. And I think we've made some advances in this, but it's still complicated. There are still jealousies and moments of anger and missed moments, and even though we'd like to be perfect about it, we still talk the moment somebody else walks out of the room.
Yes, and the other thing was the 4 friends, 2 go together, 2 others go together, the 2 in the middle then I mean, they're all like switching their allegiances.
And nobody quite gets it right. A little bit of it becomes like a telephone game, because one of them tells her mother, and then her mother says, "Did you hear that?"
Yeah.
And then it goes on in that way that any rumor goes on, and it affects the girl, actually, who is many people's favorite character, is the one who comes out of the hotel, because she actually has a very pure spirit.
Who do you see her as?
I don't know the answer to that. Who do you see her as?
I don't know. She looked like a really nice blonde kind of girl to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she looked, Lizzie?
Lizzie,
Yeah, right.
I always thought Lizzie was sort of dark and ethereal, but what do I know?
Blonde,
I clearly,
blonde and ethereal, maybe
blonde
because
and
we're dark.
ethereal, yeah.
The other thing that I loved so much was that you just, as you said, you just went from one sentence to the other. I mean, you can just tell the whole story, and it's all there, and it's easy to carry on the plane with you. It's
you.
easy to carry
Yeah.
anywhere. It's light, it's lightweight, and it's terrific. I
Thank
really
you.
loved reading it. And
Thank
Amy,
you.
I've known you for so long.
I know.
And we've never talked about your books before.
I know.
This is a pleasure.
Thank you. It's really nice of you to have me.
And I'm glad you were here. Thanks. Don't go away. We'll be right back with Timmy Woods. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Designer Timmy Woods was born and raised in Beverly Hills. She holds a degree in sociology and art from UCLA and attended classes at Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, as well as the University of Singapore. Timmy modeled for Revlon and was a classical dancer with the New York City Ballet. Timmy was a member of the New York City Ballet, and you must have been taking ballet all through your youth to be able to be in the company.
Well, I started dancing, actually I think I started dancing when I was born.
Oh.
I started dancing actually officially when I was about 3.5, 4 years old, which is actually young, and I just loved it. I love dance, that's it. And
Well, where'd you take classes? and where did
originally
you
I
work?
started with, there was a lady on Doheny called Olga Mashonik, and I started with her many long years ago. And then I went to the Hollywood School of Ballet and with Stanley Holden.
Oh yeah, did you go there?
Mm-hmm.
Stanley Holden was great training then.
Stanley Holden was very good.
So you had really good training.
Mm-hmm.
Because I used to go to Tatiana Ryabushinska, and I thought maybe you came to classes there, and I didn't know
No,
it.
I didn't. No.
But Stanley was great. She used to send over people to Stanley, and Stanley would send people over to Tanya to change technique and to work on it. But did you travel as a dancer?
No, I also danced for the Monkees.
Oh, you did?
So I was a disco dancer in my teen years.
Well, how did that happen?
Just one day somebody said, would you like to dance with the Monkees? And I go, of course, because I modeled and I liked to dance, and it was fine.
And then you went into ballet?
No, I danced for the New York City Ballet Company very briefly when I was a child.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then I went into modeling, and I went into different types of dance.
Because were you living in New York then?
I lived in New York for a brief period.
Oh, I see. So with Revlon, what were you doing actually?
I was actually a hair model, and I did a lot of modeling.
Ah, so they have like
long,
hand
many years.
models,
Yes.
hair models, lip
course.
models.
Yes.
When did design enter your life then?
I think design entered my life from the time that I was a child, because my parents were developers.
Oh.
And so my mother was always remodeling something, or she was always fixing something, and I would
so
do
you
it
were
with
helping
her.
her?
I would do it with her. I got sick. What did we do when I got the measles? We made a skirt.
I see. So did you ever do actual clothing design before you started designing bags?
Well, I do some clothing now for Japan. I sell on television in Japan.
Oh, you do?
And I
Is
sell
it
my
like
products,
is
and I
it-
talk about fashion. It's like home shopping.
Is it like home shopping?
Uh-huh.
When do you go to the Far East?
I do the television show every 3 months
Over there?
over there, and I've been on television 7 years,
Oh, great.
which is really nice. And
Do they call in?
oh, of course.
But do you speak
I encourage them
Japanese?
to call in. I say, konnichiwa. I encourage them. Do I speak Japanese? I speak a little.
So do you?
But I
does
have an
someone
interpreter.
interpret or
uh-huh.
translate for you when they're calling in?
Uh-huh.
And do they?
And they love the things. Naturally, they love wood. They love the fact that they're all hand carved,
Right.
and they collect them.
So you started, but you didn't start doing these accessories until the 80s or so,
Correct.
right?
I mean, I modeled for a long time, and I have worked in the clothing industry. I was fashion director of the third largest junior company in the United States.
Oh.
And
What was that?
Arpegia,
Oh.
young innocent, young Edwardian, organically grown. Sue Wong, who's still in business, started at Arpegia.
I love Sue Wong. All those
Checo.
people, that's so great. So you were working here then?
Yes.
Then?
Then, anyhow, I decided that I would make handbags. Actually, I went to the Fashion Institute. I went to the Fashion Institute to take a pattern making class.
Mm.
This is even before this company. I walked in, took 2 classes. My teacher looked at me one day and she goes, "What are you doing here?" I go, "I have no idea." I walked out and I go, "Okay, what am I going to do?" Well, I love leather, and I guess I'll make handbags so I don't have to have the inventory that I have to have with clothing. 2 weeks later, I sold Bloomingdale's, Bendels, and Bergdorf, and I had a window in Bloomingdale's
With your leather bags?
with my leather bags,
So
which was really exciting. And I did that for a long period of time.
was it your own company?
I had my own company. My child's first words were United Parcel, not Mommy, because United Parcel Man would come to the house.
And you were making everything at the house?
I started in the house.
Yeah. And then where did the Ken Dove?
Ken Doan,
Mm-hmm.
I had a job offer from a Fortune 500 company to be a fashion director. And at that particular time, I decided, wouldn't it be nice to get paid by somebody else?
So were you already working and then he found you?
Yes.
I see.
It was Oxford Industries,
Uh-huh.
BJ Designs.
Uh-huh.
So I did BJ Designs and I did Ken Doan. And
What were you
we
doing
did clothing.
for them?
I
Oh,
did
you
clothing.
clothing.
Mm-hmm.
And did you have your name on it, or was it his?
No, this was their name, and I was their fashion director, and
I see.
it was very nice. And I got into a car accident. I was hit by a big rig, actually in Compton, 3 times.
Oh,
And that night my line had to be in New York, got it to New York, but I really was injured. And not severely, but I was injured. And my father said to me, well, why don't you do something else? So I decided, okay, and I got my real estate license, and then I went into international real estate. And that's when I went to the University of Singapore.
Oh, international real estate, because you were traveling anyway to that
I've been
far
in the
east.
Orient since I've been 16.
I see.
My birthday present when I was 16 was a trip around the world.
I see. So the Pacific Rim was a great influence on you all through your life.
All throughout my entire life, I've been in the Orient. I'm very at home in the Orient.
And how did they accept you, tall, blonde,
They
blue
accept
eyes?
Me, they accept me actually very well. And part of the reason why is I understand that middle ground that they really live in. And the other reason is I tell them if they have a problem, call me collect. Because phone calls at that time were expensive. The cost of the cell phone was much more money than it is at this present time in a foreign country. And that's what's really made my business relationship so stable with these people.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So then did Timmy Woods start from
That's
there?
when Timmy Woods started. That's when the Woods started.
I see. So is that really, what is your real name?
I was originally born
Yes.
Susan Schulman.
Uh-huh.
And that was when I knew Miss Ephron's sisters. When we all went to El Rodeo together.
I see. And so
And
you went to El Rodeo, you went to Beverly Hills High, you went to all...
When I was 13 years old, I changed my name.
You did? And
I
you picked
changed
Timmy?
I changed my name to Timmy Woods when I was 13 years old. I used to study with John Houseman at UCLA. And I did plays at UCLA.
You were acting?
Uh-huh. So therefore, I didn't want to be a Susan.
But did you know you were going to be working in wood?
I had no idea that I would ever be working in wood.
So Timmy Woods came out to be a wooden line of
Totally
bags.
accidentally. Totally.
So do you collaborate with different people on your bags? You use Swarovski crystals. Do you collaborate with them? Do they have any input?
Not really. I mean, truthfully, my bags are really my thing. I just love making things. So they're my little sculptures.
Talking about
As it happens,
sculpture, let's
Swarovski
look
came
at-
by the other day. This one, well, I know a lot of people, my bags are collectible. So for instance, that's why there's a picture of Jay Leno. Jay loves motorcycles, so I thought he should have a motorcycle. And people vibrate to them.
Did someone give this to Jay?
Well, I gave it to Jay. He's actually my neighbor, too.
Oh, he is. And then what about the furs? You use furs on some of your bags.
I use a lot of fur. I like fur. I try to use faux fur, so therefore I don't.
So you don't have the wrath of people.
I don't have
upon you.
exactly. I don't have the wrath of
Yes.
PETA on me.
Right.
And I use semi-precious stones. The bag next to you has a semi-precious stone handle.
Oh, I
That's
see.
black onyx.
Oh, is that right?
This one, this
Let me
is.
show this because this is great.
And
This
everything is a shoulder
hibiscus,
strap.
Right?
Uh-huh.
So you can actually use these. They're hard.
They're all hand carved out of wood. Even the hinges are handmade on the bottom of them.
Did you start? Oh, look at this. It is beautiful.
They're really.
Did you start carving them yourself?
I found these people who made boxes. I went, if you make boxes, we can make
Look at
bags.
this. See the hinges.
And that's how I got started making the bags.
And then did you design like this checkerboard? You designed it and then do they put it together?
I'll make a flat sketch. Then I'll sit there and work with the carver. I'll make the original pattern.
But each one is wood?
Each one is wood and each one is handmade.
And let's
The
look
dogs.
at
I make
the dogs.
lots of
Look
dogs.
at the dogs.
Everybody wants their dog. More people want their dog than their cat.
I saw then their cat?
Than their cat. Cats are more generic than dogs.
You have a book that you put out and there's like 50 dogs.
Lots of dogs, especially because of Japan. Because Japan, they dress their dogs so cute all the time.
Oh, does this open?
Of course it does.
Oh, there, I did it. Okay, so it does. Wait, let's see if I can get it. Can I get it open?
Oh, wait a second, that's so funny.
This is the wrong one. I'm going to open the
No,
fish.
it's fine.
Oh,
It's
you
here.
did. Oh. See, the dog is like
See,
this.
this is Sammy the Yorkie.
And just his little back part opens.
And they come with,
And this shoulder strap comes like, oh, these are
correct,
so
and they come
good.
with certificates of authenticity and originality on the inside.
And he has a name?
This is Sammy. They all have names.
They all have names. Oh. Before we only have a couple of minutes left, I want to show this picture because we had the bag that went with it.
Now, this photo was taken by Julia Schulman, which is actually how I met Joan yesterday, because you were at
The Fashion Institute,
the Fashion
Group's
event. And Julius, we were at Julius's house. Julius is my uncle, and I'm very proud to say that he's 95 years old. If you don't know him, he really made modernism in the United States.
He's a great photographer.
He is still a great photographer.
So to have your bags photographed by Julia Schulman is like incredible.
Well, I love photography, so to work with Julius while he's shooting is an amazing thing because he sees things, he frames his image.
As you talk, I'm going to hold these up, keep talking about how
We
he
were
does
talking
these
about
things.
this yesterday. Who would think of putting a very modernist bag with Delft? And when he photographed this, the light in the background was maybe 15 feet behind, and it lit the image, the front of the image. It was just fabulous.
Well, because he's such a great photographer, he knows what to do. But to have your advertising done by someone with such a great name and who's related to you is really incredible.
Well, truthfully, I just love being with him.
This one too.
This is
too by
wonderful.
him.
And for him, he says this is his second profession.
Oh, now because
He calls
you
himself
gave
a
him
bag
this-
man now.
You gave him this. Do you use special kinds of trees? Special kinds of wood?
Acacia trees, and for every tree I take out, we replant two. Noah's Ark was supposedly made out of acacia wood.
Because it's so hard?
It's a soft, carvable wood.
Oh, it's
And there are certain
carvable.
things that I learned about wood, such as the fact a very young tree doesn't have the striations, and a very old tree is too hard to carve.
Oh, that's very interesting. Let's show some more pictures before we go, because we're
Here he
ready
put it with
to go.
Leonardo da Vinci, in a book by Leonardo. So therefore, you have the angel.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Timmy. And as we leave, I'm going to hold these up. And
Okay.
Keep writing to 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 90017, and we'll see you next time on the Joan Quinn Profile.